Hey everybody, it's Alex from Old Man Playing Video Games Badly, and we're not going to do video games today. We're going to do something that's much more important. The great video card swindle of 2020 and 2021. Well, let's go look.
Old man playing video games badly.
All right, you don't get to see my ugly face on the camera too often, but here I am. I'm me. I'm Alex. I am the old man. I usually play video games, but tonight we're going to bitch. First of all, let me start by prefacing this and saying that I have been attempting to put together a new PC since August of 2020. Yes. I started to look at it in beginning of 2020, late 2019, and sort of went with the theory that, yep, there were new processors and new GPUs and all that coming out mid to late 2020, and I was going to just kind of slow down the boat, and we get to it. Yes, it's a webcam, and it's going to focus and shit. Sorry. It happens. Anyway, I was watching a Linus Tech video. I love Linus, by the way. Linus is like my idol when it comes to being a techie dude. Him and Steve from Gamers Nexus and the guys from Hardware Unboxed and stuff like that, and Jay from Jay's 2 Cents. These are the sort of guys I really love. Especially recently because they've become, for the most part, the most cynical guys in town. It's been great. So, yeah, shout out to all of them. But Linus's video was called I Was Right, and I Hate It. Semiconductor Shortage Explained. Lots of exclamations after the word right, all in uppercase too, I should point out. And he goes on to explain that the semiconductor foundries are running at 100%, and the manufacturers running 100%, and there's just a shortage. I call bullshit. Oh, bad word again. I'm old enough. I'm old enough and gray enough. I earn the hair. I earn the right to bitch and say bad words from time to time, with my apologies. The truth is a little bit different from reality, and we have to put all the numbers together. Linus pointed out that, demand for CPUs, GPUs, computers, PCs in general, up 20%, 25%. Chromebooks up 300%. Blah, 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 blah. Everybody's working at home, blah, blah. Your old e-machine ain't working no more, whatever it is. There's been a lot of that. That's fine. So let's say the market for PC parts is up 25%. Okay? Now we take another number. He says the foundries, the chip makers, Samsung, TSMC, used to run at about 80%, and they'd have 20% left over for maintenance and repair, and occasionally to run a little bit harder to match if there was a little extra demand required. He says now they're all running at 100%. Now, let's do the math. So, 80 out of 100, right? Which leaves you 20. That is 25% increase. If you go from 80 to 100%, that's a 25% increase in your output. So if the demand is up 25%, the manufacturing, if they're running, pedal to the metal, pied à la plancher, we say in French, au bout, là, they would just about be keeping up, more or less, okay? But that's not what's happening. We'll get to that in a minute, okay? Now, the next little piece of the puzzle is the idea that if demand is up 25%, and let's say supply remained exactly the same, so you continue to produce the same number of GPUs and CPUs that you produced before, and you'd fall behind. So let's say you sold 1 million units in a month, and you needed 1.25 million, you'd be a quarter of a month behind. About 8 days. Okay. The next month, month 2, you'd fall behind by another 8 days. So now you're 16 days behind in your supply. and so on and so on and so on. It takes you 5 months to be a month behind based on 25% not getting their product. And this assumes that, all things being equal, right? This is not what's happening. First of all, and let's be fair here, there's obviously a lot more demand than 25% increase, right? We know this. Spot demand for parts is probably 100% up in some cases, but realistically, probably 50% up. I haven't built a new PC in 5 years. I mean, my Bazooki over there, 1060, 4790K, works like a top, man. There's no reason to replace it. We're finally getting to a point where generationally, I speak like Jay sometimes, it's finally worthwhile to make the upgrade. It's finally worthwhile to spend the money in advance. But even if demand is double, which would be huge, right? If demand doubled, imagine what that would do for sales. Literally, sales would be like this. You'd have a graph and it'd be like your sales are like going up slowly, and then all of a sudden it'd be like this, okay? That's not what's happening. The other thing is, because I've been trying to find the parts and I've been trying to buy a CPU and I've been trying to buy a GPU, I've been dealing with a lot of retailers locally to me. I've been dealing with retailers overseas. I've been dealing with retailers in the US market, in the Canadian market, and a couple of emails to Europe, but I didn't really push on it because everybody's told me the European market is screwed. Don't even bother. So I started to think about this, and what I realized is this. Production isn't up. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care all the flobby 100% and blee and blah and blee and blah. No, something's wrong. Something smells. Something doesn't math up. And originally I went through the process and I thought, well, it might be, if you went from 4 cores to 8 cores and you're building the cores individually, like AMD builds their individual chiplet cores, that you might produce only half as many CPUs packages because you need twice as many chiplets. If you went from a 4-core to an 8-core machine, as an example. But realistically, in AMD's case, they basically went core for core. They didn't change, right? They have the same number of cores. If you take a 3600 or a 5600 or a 5800 or a 38, whatever, 5900, 3900, core for core, you're on the same number of cores. So the product part count per se has not changed. The process. There you go. It's the process. Okay. I personally think what's happened is Samsung and TSMC are the only 2 companies that are doing 7 nanometer. And all of these CPUs and all these GPUs use a 7 nanometer process for their main components. AMD, when they build when they assemble the chiplets into a CPU package, the CPU package itself is, if I remember correctly, as big as a 14 nanometer process. It might be a 10, but I think it's a 14 nanometer base, because they're still using the same pin configuration, the same socket that they were using back when they were doing the 1700s and the 1 series back there. So the bottom, the chiplets are small. They're all 7 nanometer process, but the underlying part and the communications part of it is basically 10 or a 14 nanometer process. I do believe it's 14 nanometer too. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but there we go. And what happened was, of course, you couldn't buy an AMD processor for love or money. I finally got one. I got a 5800 about 3 or 4 weeks ago, finally. I had to pay very slightly over retail for it, but at least I had one, which was not so bad. And then during this entire process, Intel has been releasing new processors and blah, 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 blah. And they've gone 2 generations in the last year and a bit, whatever, right? We're on a 13 gen now. They've just released them. But when you go and look, you realize that all of Intel's processors, besides the fact that they manufacture them themselves for the most part, are on 10 and 14 nanometer process. This leads me down to the conclusion that the real problem, the elephant in the room, the thing nobody seems to want to talk about, is that they're having they must be having very significant yield problems with the 7 nanometer process, which is to say the fabs are 100% occupied, but they are actually producing less usable components at the end compared to where they were using a 10 or a 14 nanometer process. This is the only thing that makes any sense. It's because in dealing with all these retailers and trying to communicate with them and see who has what and what's going on, I have not had a single one say to me, "Oh yeah, we get a container of GPUs every week, but demand's so high we sell them out." No, they're saying we only get 3, and there's 100 people standing over here waiting for them. So screw you. The product isn't making it to retail. Now, miners, yes. Okay. And miners, yes, because miners, big mining groups, the ones that actually buy enough to make it worth doing, they deal with the distributors directly. So the boards, the GPUs themselves may be making it to the distributors, and the distributors are choosing to sell them to miners, but reporting them as retail sales, just saying, hey, we sold them to a retailer. So there might be a company called Bob's Retail GPUs that is really just a front for buying for miners. So the distributor reports to MSI and they report to NVIDIA and AMD. Oh, yeah, we sold all your stuff to retail clients. But no, because it's not getting to retail. You ask any of the retailers, you ask the big retailers in Europe, you ask the big retailers in the US, they aren't getting huge containers full. They're not getting, if we're going 100% full pin and you're producing 1 million products a month, say, stuff's got to be going through like this. And it's not. It's crickets. There's no product. The product's not there. So you can say that there's a shortage. You can say the fabs are running full pin. You can say the manufacturer's in a shortage of capacitors. You can come up with all the crap you want. The reality is either A, all the GPUs especially are heading to miners, or B, there's actually a sizable problem with the 7 nanometer process, and their yields are sucking horribly. Because remember, we get back, like I said, right at the beginning. If your demand is up 25%, you're 7 days behind per month. In 8, reality, 7 to 8. Assuming a 4-week, you're 25%, you're 1 week behind every month. But you wouldn't be that far behind. It would literally be, we don't have them today, but we'll have them in 2 or 3 days. And you would always be like that. You'd be sold out, but you'd be able to say to the customer, oh yeah, but I got another truckload coming on Friday. I'll sign you up here and we'll take 25% deposit and I'll sell you the card when it gets here. They're not doing that. And the reason they're not doing that is because they don't have any. And if they don't have any, that means that they're not making it into the retail sales stream. And if they're not getting in the retail sales stream, either somebody else is getting them or they're not making them. There's only 2 solutions. Unless the third option is that there aren't that many cards because they're not making that many, because they don't have the chips, because the process is not going well. I don't think anybody wants to talk about it. That's me. That's my feeling. I think that a year from now or 2 years or 3 years from now, it will come out that the 7 nanometer process was a disaster, that the failure rate on GPUs, especially basic testing after the wafer's done and they're just testing the components and binning the components, that the failure rate was so high that they had no choice. That there isn't that many cards. The Steam results, and I was talking about this in another video before, but the Steam results, there's nothing. The 1060 or the 1080, right, which was a very expensive card at the time, is 9% of the market, and the 1060, like I have, where is it in here? It's 1050 Ti, 1660 Super. All the top cards are previous gen or second previous gen cards. GTX 1080, GTX 1050 Ti, 1650, 2060, 1050, 1070, 1660 Ti, 1660 Super, 2070, RX 580, GTX 1080, GTX 1660. Yeah, basically it's all previous process. And you have to go way down the list, down to like 1%, to find a new card. The top new card is the RTX 3070 at 1.24% of all Steam players. Now you got to think, Steam is the land of video game players. The target market for all this, but only 1.24% of the people have a new card. There's something just not right in all of this. The math isn't adding up. And it makes me wonder. So I make this video. I may never publish this video, but I'm going to hang on to this one. And a year from now, when all this comes out, and it's finally admitted that, well, the real problem was that the 7 nanometer process blows, and that the failure rate on the GPUs coming off the way, the wafers coming out of the machine was 50 or 60%. Then we'll have something to talk about it. The reality is the shortage is completely weird. And somebody's profiting from it. There's a huge profit somewhere because these cards are selling for obnoxious amounts of money. And the big companies are not showing big enough increases in profit to express the huge markups that they're making. So the money's going somewhere where we can't see it, in private companies and in private hands where we can't have it. So, safe to say, my plans for a new system are on hold for an infinite amount of time. As much as I would love to grab a 3070 or 3080 and make a new system, I can't. I'm not in a position to pay $2,500 US for a graphics card that's worth $800 on a happy day. I can't justify it. I'm not mining Bitcoin. I'm not gonna, burn down the power grid in order to make some coins. I'm just a old man playing video games badly, and I can't have a video card because something. And it's not, the numbers don't add up on production. So either there's a production problem, i.e. the wafers are bad, or the GPU cards are all going somewhere else and nobody is saying where they're going. Yeah. Think about it. It's a biggie. It's an issue. It's a thing. All right. Thanks very much for watching. I appreciate it. Too much light in here. But do I look better with less light? Anyway, never mind. I never use a camera, so just take it for what it's worth. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks for listening to me, bitch. And Linus, keep up the good work and send me a freaking video card, would you?
Old man played video games badly.